Good evening. Let's turn now to Clarice high above the action in the New Orleans Superdome.
Hi, Steve. For the Republicans, the second half of the ticket is finally set, and George Bush is now focusing on his official nomination. Channel 4's Richard Ray has been with the vice president and has more on his day. Rich?
Clarice, most of the day was spent making the rounds with his new running mate, but George Bush also found himself explaining a remark he made yesterday that has reportedly upset some Hispanics. By virtue of their mother's Mexican ancestry, 3 of the vice president's grandchildren are Hispanic. And yesterday, as he pointed them out to President Reagan during an airport departure ceremony, he referred to them as the 3 little brown ones.
For anyone to suggest that that comment of pride is anything other than what it was, I find it personally offensive. And P.S., I don't want to see these kids hurt. And they weren't hurt by what I said. And if they're hurt by misinterpretation, that isn't fair.
Bush also explained why he made his vice presidential announcement yesterday rather than wait for the Thursday morning meeting with the Texas delegation.
If we left it dangling out there, there would be an accusation, and properly so I felt, that I was, not treating those who had been considered for this job with the dignity to which they were entitled.
Democrats have characterized the Bush-Quayle ticket as too wealthy, too well-born, and too white to have broad-based appeal, but Texas Senator Phil Gramm disagrees.
But you vote for a man or a woman based on what they've done in their life. If they happen to have families that were achievers, I don't think we ought to hold it against them.
Clarice, of course, tonight Phil Gramm gives the nominating speech for George Bush, and Roger Staubach, former Cowboy quarterback, introduces him, so there is a real Texas flavor to tonight's events.
It's going to be a big time for Texas. Thanks, Rich. Texas delegates are still applauding Bush's choice for a running mate, and at the same time, they're beginning to talk campaign strategy for the GOP ticket in Texas. Channel 4's Barbara White is in the Superdome with more on the story. Barbara?
Clarice, State GOP Chairman Fred Meyer today called the Bush-Quayle team the dynamic duo. Governor Bill Clements described the vice presidential pick as a master stroke. And on this nomination night, the Texas delegates appear fired up to work for victory in November.
And certainly we in Texas is probably the greatest quail hunting area in the United States. We can relate to Mr. Quayle.
And today, relating to Mr. Quayle means pinning on a button. It has become the latest addition to souvenir pictures at this week's convention.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
These members of the Texas Federation of Republican Women are learning more about the conservative senator from Indiana.
And the more we find out, the more excited we're getting.
The headline reads, "Bush goes for youth, picks Quayle." And according to Clements, that translates into broader support from Texas voters ages 25 to 40.
He will relate to this group, and not only to this group, but to our college campus group. And that is a Republican vote.
But will Quayle do much Texas campaigning? State GOP Chairman Fred Meyer says probably not.
Because it's primarily a Bush to caucus race in Texas, because Bush is from Texas. Everybody that is interested in the presidential campaign is going to think in terms of Bush, Texas, the presidency.
Texas delegates apparently are finding some common ground with Dan Quayle. For more on that, we're going to go down to the convention floor and Channel 4's Steve Stoller. Steve, what do they like about Quayle?
Barbara, the main thing they like about Dan Quayle is that he's a conservative, and that should help solidify the support among the party's far right. They like his hawkish stand on defense and his pro-life position on abortion. More than 24 hours have passed since George Bush announced Dan Quayle would be his running mate. Texas delegates were still talking about the selection at this afternoon's luncheon sponsored by Houston Congressman Jack Fields. Several women's groups have criticized the choice, claiming Quayle does nothing to reduce the so-called gender gap.
There are certain groups, like in the Now group, that we will probably never do well with. What we're going for is middle America, and that includes middle female and male.
Anti-abortion advocates also support Quayle's pro-life stand.
His record is excellent on pro-life, and I think he's going to excite people in Texas and all across the Southwest who believe in pro-family, pro-life issues.
Texas delegates are looking forward to Thursday night when George Bush makes his acceptance speech. Some say it's imperative for the vice president to tell the nation who he is.
The American public really doesn't understand, in my opinion, or know George Bush. The little time that I've spent with him personally, I find that he is the most probably misunderstood politician of this decade.
Right now, the delegates are concentrating on tonight's roll call vote for the presidential nomination. George Bush Jr., the vice president's son, will announce the Texas vote, which, if all goes as planned, will put the vice president over the top for the nomination. Clarice?
Okay, Steve, thank you. Now, here's the latest on the souvenir front. This button we showed you last night is out. As the delegates file in now, they're buying new, improved buttons. Take a look at this one. It's called a commemorative button, copied after a 1908 GOP campaign button. Bush is in one elephant ear, Quayle is in the other ear. It's $10, or you can buy 3 of these buttons for $20. I'll be back later in this newscast, Steve, with a preview of what this big night for George Bush and Texas is going to be all about. Back to you.
All right, Clarice, thank you. Senator Quayle's selection has renewed interest in a sex for influence scandal which surfaced in 1981 when Quayle was still a member of the House of Representatives. The scandal centered on Washington lobbyist and Playboy model Paula Parkinson, who claimed to have had sex with several Republican House members. As Channel 4's Don Johnson has learned, the once high-profile Parkinson is now living in Dallas and trying to avoid the spotlight.
Paula Parkinson posed for these Playboy pictures shortly after making headlines in a sex and influence scandal on Capitol Hill in 1981. Parkinson claims she had sexual relations with more than a dozen Republican members of the House while working as a lobbyist. In January 1980, she shared a cottage with 3 congressmen while on a golfing holiday in Florida. One of the men was Dan Quayle. Parkinson never said she had an affair with Quayle, and Quayle denied having sex with Parkinson. But at today's news conference, Quayle would not elaborate on the episode.
You have said that you went on a weekend with 2 congressmen, one of whom brought her along, that you saw her only once and you played golf the rest of the time. First of all, sir, is that an accurate account?
No.
Okay, could you give us an accurate account?
That has been covered, and there's nothing to it.
Well, the second part of the question then is, have you seen her on any other occasion in Washington, perhaps, other than that Florida trip?
No.
The Justice Department never found any evidence favors had been swapped for sex. But Parkinson stuck with her story.
You're turning me into the horrid little lady. You know, it takes 2 to tango.
Parkinson soon quit her lobbying job, was divorced, and returned to Dallas, her hometown, and where her family still lived. Now 37, she reportedly has worked in recent years as a live-in cook, a cigarette girl, and an interior decorator. Sources led Channel 4 News to this apartment in a Dallas suburb where Parkinson now apparently lives. A woman at the apartment who came to the door but would not open it denied being Paula Parkinson, having ever been a lobbyist, or having ever known Dan Quayle.
Private property, I'm calling the police.
Is Paula Lamb there, please? Hello, is anyone there?
Family members have been unavailable for comment about the present life of the woman who once told Playboy, "I hope to stay in politics all my life." Don Johnson, Channel 4 News.
Most people don't know much about Dan Quayle except that he's young, just 41 years old. Ken Capps reports how youthful voters may affect this race.
A lot of incoming students at TCU may not be old enough to drink, but Democrats and Republicans are hoping they will get out and vote. And that is where 41-year-old Dan Quayle may go to the head of the class with younger voters.
I think that they will. I think that that'll appeal to that generation. I think that'll be a good combination. I think it's different.
Quayle's Robert Redford looks and energetic style is seen as a plus to some students who do plan to cast a ballot for Bush.
I don't think 41's too young. I think it'll add some vigor to his presidency. I think that's a good choice.
Many see Quayle as a vice president who can bring in young conservatives, the baby boomers, and maybe some Democrats. But then Professor Jim Riddlesberger doesn't see it that way.
President Reagan has been most popular among young voters in the United States. He's the oldest president we've ever had, so I don't think age per se is necessarily an important factor.
But Riddlesberger says you can bet age will be a factor in the Democratic attack on Quayle, especially from a more experienced statesman like Lloyd Bentsen. As for the election, an older Bentsen versus a younger Quayle.
I don't think it makes any difference.
I think most of them will go with the person that they think will help us out the most and do the best job.